Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at a very specific, but yeah, incredibly important corner of the global health market. That's the antibiotics used to treat yersiniosis. Our source material for this is a really detailed market forecast from Cognitive Market Research. It's packed with projections, insights going from 2021 right through to 2033. And our mission really is to kind of cut through all that data, highlight the big trends, and, pull out the most valuable insights for you. Just for some quick context here. Yersiniosis, it's a bacterial infection, often foodborne. It can be anything from like mild stomach issues to more serious stuff. And its global presence is, well, a key reason this market is so dynamic.
Oh, absolutely dynamic. And when we talk about dynamic, the global market for these yersiniosis antibiotics really shows that. So back in 2021, it was valued at $135.563 million. But the report projects this really consistent, strong upward path, reaching $189.4 million by 2025, and then a pretty impressive leap to $369.705 million by 2033.
Wow, that's quite a jump.
It is. And what's really telling is the consistent compound annual growth rate, the CAGR. It's sitting at 8.72% over that whole period. So this isn't just a momentary surge,
Yeah.
It's robust, steady growth. And it seems to be driven by two main things highlighted in our source. First, just increasing global awareness of Yersinia infections, which means better diagnosis.
Right, more people getting identified.
Exactly. And second, continuous advancements in the antibiotic therapies themselves.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's try and unpack this across the globe, maybe starting with North America. What's the picture there?
Yeah, North America, it definitely plays a significant role. The market there was valued at $52.599 million in 2021. And it's projected to more than double, actually, to $136.421 million by 2033. That maintains a solid CAGR of 8.268%.
Okay, solid growth.
Yeah. And when we drill down into the countries, well, the United States, as you might expect, dominates the market size. But what's kind of interesting is the slightly faster growth rate that we see in Canada.
Oh, interesting. So Canada's growth trajectory is a bit steeper than the U.S., even though the U.S. market itself is, well, bigger.
Exactly that. So the U.S. market, it's projected to reach over $109 million by 2033. That's with an 8.146% DAGR. But Canada, it shows a slightly higher rate, 8.964% CAGR. It grows from around $6 million in 2021 up to nearly $17 million by 2033.
Yeah.
And Mexico also shows robust growth, keeping pace with the regional trend. It's projected to approach $10 million by 2033 with an 8.478% CAGR. These variations, I mean, they're small, but they might hint at different local factors, maybe influencing market penetration or awareness levels.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, moving over to Europe then. What does the data tell us about the yersiniosis antibiotic market there? Are we seeing similar patterns, that consistent growth?
Yeah, Europe follows a very similar positive trend. The regional market was valued at $34.975 million in 2021. And it's expected to reach almost $91 million by 2033. That's with a CJR of 8.339%, so very much in line.
Right.
Within Europe, though, we definitely see some interesting variations. They kind of highlight maybe regional differences in healthcare systems or, public health drives. Germany, for instance, shows notably strong growth. It's got a 9.075% CAGR, projecting its market to nearly $19 million by 2033.
Nearly $19 million just in Germany. Okay. And what about other major European economies? Are they sort of mirroring Germany's robust growth, or are there maybe any outliers we should note?
Well, most of Europe is on a pretty healthy growth path. The United Kingdom, for example, also has a strong 8.688% CGR. France and Italy, they show solid growth too, maybe slightly more modest, but still in that 7 to 8% range for CGR.
Okay.
What's perhaps particularly interesting is Russia. It has a comparatively lower CGR, 6.753%, growing from about $1.8 million to just under $4 million.
Noticeably lower.
Yeah, it could indicate maybe different healthcare spending priorities, or perhaps a slower adoption curve for some of the newer antibiotic therapies in that market. It's hard to say for sure from just this data, but then you look at others like Spain, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland. They all fall pretty comfortably within that sort of 7.5% to 8.6% CAGR range.
Yeah.
So it shows widespread expansion, but definitely varied. Even Luxembourg, tiny market, $0.315 million, growing to $0.695 million, but still a 6.8% growth.
Right. Okay, now, here's where I suspect it might get really interesting. The Asia-Pacific region. My sense is that this region often surprises us with just how fast things can expand in medical markets. Does the data for yersiniosis antibiotics back that up?
Oh, you're absolutely right to anticipate that. Asia Pacific really stands out as the front runner. It is the highest regional KGR of the lot, 9.909%. This market is projected to grow from $26.435 million in 2021 to a significant $82.075 million by 2033.
Wow, that's a huge increase.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this remarkable growth, it isn't just about population size, though that's part of it. Our source indicates it's largely driven by, well, rapid improvements in public health infrastructure across the region. Plus, increased access to diagnostics and various government initiatives aimed at combating infectious diseases in these economies.
So it's not just growth, it's actually accelerated growth compared to other regions. Which countries within APAC are really, leading this charge? What kind of numbers are we talking about there?
Yeah, the individual country performances within APAC are quite something. China is leading the region. It has an impressive 10.11% CAGR, projecting its market from about $7.7 million back in 2021 to over $24 million by 2033.
Over 24 million.
Yep. And India shows truly exceptional growth. It boasts an even higher CGR, 10.688%, taking its market from $4.2 million to over $14 million. And then you have Southeast Asia, treated as a sub-region here. It demonstrates an even higher growth rate again, 10.768% CGR, going from $1.3 million to over $4.6 million. Even smaller but rapidly developing markets like Singapore, they're showing high growth too, 10.234% CGR, growing from just under $1 million to over $3 million.
Amazing dynamism.
It really underscores the region's increasing investment in and, crucially, access to advanced healthcare. Japan strong too, 9.2%, South Korea 9.2%, Australia 8.7%, Taiwan 9.5%. It's across the board.
That really is quite a surge in Asia-Pacific. Okay, let's shift our lens back maybe to the Western Hemisphere's southern half. What's the trajectory looking like for Yersiniosis antibiotics down in South America?
South America is also experiencing strong, consistent growth, no doubt about it. Its market stood at $9.354 million in 2021, and it's expected to nearly triple, actually, to $26.33 million by 2033. That comes with a healthy CGR of 8.994%.
Almost 9%. Pretty strong.
Very strong. Brazil leads the pack size-wise with an 8.864% CAGR. But it's interesting to note, Argentina has an even higher projected CGR, 9.568%.
Oh, higher than Brazil.
Yeah, slightly. Could indicate maybe more aggressive treatment protocols or perhaps faster diagnostic adoption there. Countries like Colombia, Peru, and Chile also show really robust growth, generally in the 8.3% to 9.2% CAGR range. So it reflects a pretty widespread regional commitment, it seems, to addressing infectious diseases.
Right. Okay. And now, turning our attention towards the Middle East, are we seeing similar kinds of growth patterns playing out there?
Yes, the Middle East antibiotics market for Yersiniosis treatment. It started at $7.727 million in 2021, and it's predicted to reach $21.506 million by 2033. That's with an 8.889% CAGR. Again, strong numbers.
Very consistent with South America, actually.
It is, yeah. And similar to South America, we see varied but strong growth within the region itself. Saudi Arabia projects an 8.974% CAGR. Turkey shows a very strong 9.337% CAGR, and the UAE actually stands out with an even higher rate, again, 9.496% CAGR.
Wow, UAE leading the pack there.
Yeah, seems to demonstrate a significant commitment maybe to healthcare infrastructure and accessing specialized treatments.
Okay, makes sense. Finally, then, let's look at the Africa region. How does its growth compare to these global trends we've been discussing?
Well, Africa, while it's starting from a smaller base, $4.474 million in 2021, it is projected to demonstrate significant expansion, increasing to $12.426 million by 2033. This growth comes with an 8.268% CAGR, which interestingly aligns very closely with the overall global average, and actually the same as North America's rate.
Huh, same as North America. Interesting.
Yeah, key countries here, like Nigeria, they have an 8.536% CAGR projected, and South Africa shows a robust 8.905% CAGR. So they seem to be spearheading this regional growth, increasing health awareness and better access to medical treatments in those areas in particular.
Okay, so we've gone around the world, looked at a lot of numbers. What does this all mean for you listening in? Beyond the individual figures, what's the big picture here that we should really be taking away from all this detailed data?
Well, I think what's truly fascinating here is just the sheer consistency and the robustness of the growth. The overall trend is, it's undeniably strong. The global antibiotics market for treating yersiniosis is on a really robust, steady upward path. Most regions are showing these impressive KGRs, mostly ranging between, say, 8 and 10%.
Right. It's not like one region is booming and another is stagnant. It's pretty widespread.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really underscores that the drivers are widespread too. You've got the rising prevalence or at least recognition of these infections. You've got improving healthcare access across all sorts of diverse economies. And of course, the continuous advancements in the antibiotic technologies themselves. So it's not just one factor, it feels like a confluence of global trends supporting this growth, and maybe reflects a broader improvement in global health monitoring and intervention.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so insightful, isn't it, to see how these big global trends actually manifest with such granular detail, like how specific countries, even within the same region, can have slightly different growth rates. It hints at all those very local factors at play, maybe policy, maybe public health campaigns, maybe just diagnostic capabilities. It really brings the data to life beyond just the headline numbers, I think. So maybe to wrap up our deep dive then, the core insight seems pretty clear. The market for Yersiniosis antibiotics isn't just growing, it's growing robustly, consistently, across the globe. And it's driven by this mix of increasing awareness, improving healthcare infrastructure, and ongoing medical advancements. Looking at these specific data-driven forecasts, well, it really gives you a unique window into these niche but clearly vital areas of the global health market.
Absolutely. And perhaps this raises an important question for you to think about. As awareness and treatment options for specific bacterial infections like Yersiniosis continue to grow, how might this kind of trend influence broader strategies, in global public health and infectious disease management over the next decade or so?
That's a great thought to leave you all with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Yersiniosis antibiotics market. We'll catch you on the next one.
Welcome to a deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on a really specific but honestly pretty dynamic niche within global pharma. That's the market for antibiotics used to treat Yersiniosis. Now, if you're tracking emerging public health challenges, it's a fascinating area. It shows how things like food safety, diagnostics, and drug innovation are all starting to collide. We're going to unpack the market research here, try to understand what's really driving this segment, look at the significant hurdles it faces, and also some of the, frankly, ingenious innovations shaping its future. And Yersiniosis, maybe you haven't heard of it, it's a bacterial infection. But what's interesting is how closely it's tied to things many of us eat, almost daily. It's a really compelling case study for how these global health trends translate directly into pharmaceutical demand. So yeah, let's dive in. Okay, so let's start with the big picture here. When we talk about a surge in the need for Yersiniosis treatments, what's genuinely fueling that? Is it simply more people getting sick, or is there something, deeper going on?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it's kind of multi-layered. Yes, absolutely. There's a clear rise in the global incidence of Yersiniosis infections, often, from things like contaminated pork and unpasteurized dairy. But the surge isn't just about more sick people needing drugs. It's actually forcing a fundamental strategic shift, a reprioritization within pharmaceutical R&D. Companies are shifting investment towards these rapidly emerging foodborne threats. Sometimes, that means pulling back from other, maybe less acute conditions. It's sort of redefining what counts as a priority disease for the industry now.
That's a really critical distinction. A strategic shift, not just like a proportional response.
Okay.
But how much of this surge is really about more infections versus just our improved ability to find what might have always been there? I mean, are diagnostics really moving the needle that significantly?
That's a great point, and it really brings up the role of technology. There's been, well, truly remarkable advancement in diagnostic capabilities. Things like innovations in rapid testing, new detection methods. It all means Yersinia infections are being diagnosed much, much faster and more accurately than they ever were before. And that speed allows for immediate antibiotic use, right? Which ensures timely intervention, cuts down the risk of complications, and ultimately you get better patient outcomes, which in turn creates a more immediate, a more pressing demand for effective antibiotics in the market.
Right, faster diagnosis equals faster treatment demand. Got it. And beyond just identifying the illness quicker, are public health initiatives playing a role here? Is there increased awareness driving this market demand too?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, then yes, absolutely. There's a heightened awareness around zoonotic diseases generally, infections that jump from animals to humans, like Yersiniosis. That's playing a vital role. Public health campaigns, plus, frankly, lessons learned from recent pandemic preparedness efforts. They've really shown a spotlight on how these bacterial infections can impact communities globally. And that definitely drives demand for specialized antibiotics, bolstering the whole market for these targeted treatments.
Okay, so on the surface, It sounds almost like a perfect storm for market growth, right? You've got rising cases, better detection, more public awareness. But I imagine it's not all smooth sailing. What are the major headwinds facing this particular market? Where does it get really complex?
Yeah, it definitely gets complex. The single most significant restraint, and honestly, it's a global health crisis in itself, is the escalating rise in antibiotic resistance. We're seeing standard treatments for yersiniosis just becoming less effective because these resistant strains are emerging. And this isn't just a hurdle for doctors, treating patients. It creates immense pressure on the pharmaceutical firms. They have to invest much, much more in novel research, which significantly adds to development costs and stretches out the timelines for getting new drugs approved.
It's almost a catch-22, isn't it? The more we get better at finding the problem, the more we realize our current tools are, well, starting to fail. But okay, beyond the biological challenge of resistance itself, is Yersiniosis even really on the radar for most big pharma companies? I mean, is it actually a big enough market to justify that massive R&D spend you mentioned?
Unfortunately, that's another critical limiting factor. It's the lack of widespread awareness combined with the, frankly, relatively small market size for yersiniosis in many parts of the world. The infection is often underdiagnosed. Sometimes it's even misdiagnosed, particularly in healthcare systems that are less developed. And that just makes it financially less attractive for a company to pour, potentially billions into developing very targeted drugs for a condition that might not yield the same kind of returns as, say, a broad spectrum antibiotic used for many things.
Right. So even if a company does see the need, sees the public health angle, and wants to innovate, the path to actually getting that drug to market must be incredibly difficult. It's not just about the science. It's navigating that whole bureaucratic maze, right?
Precisely. Yeah, the complex regulatory landscape definitely compounds the issue. Developing and then getting approval for any new antibiotic involves really rigorous safety trials, very time-consuming procedures, and astronomical investment. We're talking huge sums. And these strict drug approval protocols, they often significantly delay product launches. Sometimes they can even inhibit rapid innovation in these very specific but, critically needed yersiniosis-focused treatments.
Okay, so we've got this picture of growing needs driven by prevalence, better diagnostics, awareness, but then these huge challenges like resistance, market viability, regulation. So what does this all mean for how the market is actually adapting? What are the key trends, maybe the innovations, that are pushing us towards more effective solutions despite all these roadblocks?
Yeah, despite those hurdles, the market is seeing some key trends that point toward, hopefully, a more sustainable and effective future. One really interesting one is the development of narrow-spectrum antibiotics. So pharmaceutical companies are shifting away from that old kind of carpet bomb approach towards more of a precision strike, you could say, focusing on therapies that specifically target yersiniosis effectively, but, and this is key, minimize harm to the beneficial gut microbiota. And doing that is actually crucial for reducing the risk of promoting broader antibiotic resistance down the line.
So the old shotgun approach is out, and we're looking for more of a sniper rifle, basically. That sounds like a pretty fundamental shift in drug design philosophy. What about combining different approaches? It feels like we're hearing more about a sort of holistic view of patient health lately.
Absolutely. That's another trend that's really reshaping the market, the growing adoption of combination therapies, especially those involving supportive treatments, like probiotics, for instance. And this approach isn't just about, managing the gastrointestinal side effects, which can be nasty with antibiotics. It's actually about actively enhancing the overall efficacy of the antibiotics themselves. By strengthening the gut environment, these combinations aim to improve patient outcomes, potentially speed up recovery, and significantly reduce relapses. It's sort of a recognition that just treating the infection itself is maybe only part of the battle.
And it sounds like technology isn't just about the diagnostic side either. It's playing a pretty transformative role in actually getting these specialized treatments to people, too.
Indeed, yeah. Telemedicine and various digital health platforms are playing an increasingly vital role, particularly in the early diagnosis and treatment of yersiniosis, especially if you think about remote or underserved areas. Through things like virtual consultations, e-prescriptions, patients are getting quicker access to the right antibiotics and expert medical advice, even in regions that might lack specialized healthcare facilities nearby. This digital expansion isn't just about convenience, it's really significantly improving equitable access and strengthening the entire market ecosystem.
So we've taken a real deep dive here into what is, I think, a fascinating and critical area where public health and pharmacology meet. We've seen how everything from, what's on our plate potentially causing infections to the huge global challenge of antibiotic resistance,
I
how that
see.
all impacts the market for Yersiniosis treatments, and then leading to these really ingenious solutions emerging through precision medicine and digital health.
Exactly. In summary, I'd say the antibiotics for Yersiniosis treatment market is evolving and evolving rapidly. It's being driven by, as we discussed, increasing infection rates, those advanced diagnostics, and a rising focus on preventing zoonotic diseases. But the road ahead definitely includes formidable obstacles. Antimicrobial resistance is the big one, plus those regulatory bottlenecks. Still, innovation in precision drug development and the really widespread adoption of telehealth solutions, they are paving the way for a more responsive and ultimately more effective treatment landscape.
As we've explored, that journey from identifying a bacterial threat like this to developing and delivering an effective treatment, it's complex, it's always changing. So maybe the thing to think about is, what does the evolution of treatments for these specific yet globally relevant infections like Yersiniosis tell you about the future? The future of managing bacterial threats overall? And maybe, how might these intertwined medical and technological trends reshape our fundamental approach to everyday health concerns? Everything from ensuring food safety right through to simply being able to access a doctor when you need one. Something to think about until our next deep dive.